John Carpenter's 1978 film Halloween is perhaps the greatest slasher ever made. But it is more than a great slasher, it is a great film. That should not come as a surprise if you are familiar with Carpenter's work. He is one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. Certainly one of my favorites. Whenever you watch one of his films, you know you are going to get a movie with great atmosphere and a masterful soundtrack. Which, by the way, brings up an interesting thing about John. He composed the scores for almost all of his movies. It's very unique for a filmmaker to not only direct, but also compose the music for their films. And the music itself is always unforgettable. He has created so many iconic themes. He is one of the true masters of synthesizer, along with Tangerine Dream, Claudio Simonetti, Giorgio Moroder, and Vangelis. His films are dripping with atmosphere, and Halloween is no exception. Part of this is thanks to his genius longtime cinematographer, Dean Candy. Dean shot many of John's films, and he filled them with deep shadows and came up with lots of fantastic camera tricks that can be matched even today. For example, the shot near the end of Halloween with Michael's face coming out of the shadows behind Laurie. They tried to recreate this shot in Halloween 2018, reversing it with Laurie's face coming out of the shadows, but it didn't look as natural. Anytime I watch a John Carpenter film, I know I'm in for a treat, especially when Dean Candy's name pops up on the opening credits. Halloween opens with an iconic, disturbing scene involving a young Michael Myers brutally murdering his older sister out of the blue. It then skips forward in time. Michael has been in a mental institution for 15 years, until he escapes on Halloween night. I like how this film has lots of character development for three girls, Laurie, Annie, and Linda. Even the two young kids, Lindsay and Tammy, get lots of good character development. The movie takes its time, unlike a lot of modern horror, in developing its characters, and it makes you sweat nervously as you wonder who the first victim will be. Who will make it out of this alive? Laurie Strode is played wonderfully by Jamie Lee Curtis. She's so young in this role and yet seems already like a star. Her co-stars also do a great job of giving their characters distinct, fun personalities. They seem like a real group of friends. In Halloween, the characters all feel real, and you worry about what will happen to them as the story unfolds and you get to know them better. Donald Pleasence is the standout. This film gives us Dr. Loomis' first appearance, and Pleasence went on to star in many of its sequels, growing more and more unhinged with his obsession of Michael. Even in this film you can see his obvious desperation. He knows that Michael is not human. Rather, he is pure evil, and he must be stopped at all costs. The police think he is overreacting, but soon they find out that Loomis was right all along. Pleasence had a way of bringing so much life to the screen in whatever role he played. I also recommend watching him in Waking Flight. He's in tons of great movies. But Halloween, in my opinion, is perhaps the man's most iconic role. In the sequels, which are fun but of course are nowhere near as good as the original, Pleasence elevates them with his acting abilities. He is so fun to watch in this movie as he hunts for Michael all over the small town of Haddonfield. The movie was shot in Los Angeles, particularly in the neighborhood of Pasadena, but they did a good job of making it look like a quaint Midwestern town. I read that the crew had many leaves scattered all over the roads and the sidewalks to make it look like it was fall, which was a nice little trick, that worked out well. I really loved the atmosphere in this movie, watching Lolly and her friends walking through the quiet neighborhood, talking, laughing, joking, having no idea what awaits them later in the night, all while Michael Myers lurks behind them, hiding behind bushes as he watches them like a creep. In the original Halloween, Michael was played by Nick Castle, and I don't think he was ever been matched since. Castle moves in a more natural way compared to the actors who portrayed Michael in all of the sequels. When people think of Michael Myers, many of them might remember him moving in a very stiff way, almost like a zombie, because that is how he moved in most of the sequels. But that didn't come out until part 2. In the original Halloween, Nick Castle's movements are like that of normal human, which I think makes him seem far more real and therefore more scarier. None of the actors who played Michael in the sequels seem to move in a similar way to Castle, except for James Jude Courtney, who did a great job as Michael in the most recent trilogy. I do like how Dick Warlock played Michael in Halloween 2, even though at first glance it almost seems too stiff, but I guess you could say that's because he had just survived 6 gunshots and then a big fall from second story balcony. Still, I think the creepiest portrayal of Michael Myers is the original, and it isn't just because of the way Nick Castle moves. It's also the way he sounds. People who haven't seen the original Halloween in a long time might think of Michael Myers as being silent at all time. But in the original movie, that isn't true. Sure, he doesn't speak, but Castle's breathing in this movie is truly disturbing to listen to. And when you hear him almost hyperventilating as he strangles Annie, it makes your skin crawl. He sounded so excited to kill her. From what I have read, Nick Castle also returned to do the bracing sounds for the most recent trilogy directed by David Gordon Green, and it was terrifying delight to hear those freaky sounds once again. PJ Soles was very funny in this movie as Lori and Annie's friend Linda. She was totally having a good time until Michael put sudden end to it. How many times did she say the word totally in this movie? I lost count, but I smiled every time. Her death is equally as terrifying as Linda's, and so is her boyfriend Bob's death. Bob's death is definitely one of Michael's most iconic scenes in the entire franchise. Seeing Michael impale him with the knife, pinning him to the wall as he stands there staring at him, slowly tilting his head. It makes you wonder, what is he thinking about? This movie is very restrained in terms of its kill count, which makes its effectiveness all the more impressive. John Carpenter did a great job making you feel each kill, and even though there are only 5 on-screen kills, which seems like not much compared to many other slashers, they all feel so startling. I really like Sheriff Brackett in this film. He's one of my favorite characters. He has one of the best lines. It's Halloween. Everyone's entitled to one good scare. There is something about the way he says it with a relaxed grin on his face. He has no idea what's coming, but we as the viewer do. I feel bad for him later on Halloween too, finding out about his daughter's death. Brackett was such a cool, funny guy, and it was sad to see him going through that. I think he and Dr. Loomis played very well off each other, which is a treatment to the casting department. They picked these actors very well, and I can't imagine anyone else playing these parts. The Halloween theme is possibly the greatest horror theme of all time, and to think it is so simple. But despite its simplicity, it seems like only maestro like John Carpenter would be able to come up with it. It's so memorable, so eerie, and so perfect for this movie. Fitting in with the quiet suburban neighborhood on Halloween night as we watch Lori and her friends strolling carelessly through the neighborhood, not knowing what is going to happen later on in the evening. I really love the music when Michael is hunting Lori in the house and appears at the top of the staircase. He stands there for a moment before beginning his descent as she screams and flees for her life. Halloween feels like a movie that wouldn't get made today. If it did, it would probably have 20 kills and tons of blood, but the original Halloween doesn't have much gore at all. And I think that's the strength of the film, because it doesn't need gore to be terrifying. A modern film with the closest atmosphere to Halloween is probably It Follows. It's a completely different story, of course, a supernatural horror rather than a slasher, but the shots of the quiet suburban neighborhood along with the ambient synthesizer score reminds me a lot of Halloween. I'd like to see the director of It Follows, David Robert Mitchell, try his hand at making Halloween movie. Of course, nothing can ever compare to John Carpenter's vision, but I still always like seeing Michael Myers up on the big screen, unless it's a terrible movie like Halloween Resurrection. Halloween 1978 is a masterpiece. It is beautiful in its simplicity, atmospheric, masterfully directed and beautifully shot, and it has a score that you always remember even if you've only seen the film once. Who could ever forget the creepy music? To me, this is the greatest slasher of all time. Which slasher movie is your favorite? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and be sure subscribe if you want to see more videos from me on horror movies.